Hare Krishna, good morning dear devotees from Sri Mayapur, necessarily daily adventures in Srimad Bhagavatam, almost daily. So today we have a very special topic in front of us. It's always a special topic because Srimad Bhagavatam is the best. Today and in the next one or two sessions, we're going to speak something about Krishna Uddhava's meeting with Nanda and Yashoda. Very special topic. And today in the next session we will be focusing more on a book called Mathura Meets Vrindavan from my Guru Maharaj, but today mostly we'll be looking at the Bhagavatam, some commentaries, as well as Gopal Champu and the book Vrindavan Lilamrita. So we'll just say a few prayers first. If somebody's online watching this, please let me know if you can see it, because I'm not sure if it's shared for public or not. Otherwise I have to stop. Yes. Hare Krishna Madhupati Bo, thank you. Gora Graganya Gana Gocha Goloru Haram Goranga Gura Tamago Pyada Kopa Briksham Gopala Gada Ratidam Yati Singha Gora Govinda Deshi Kavaram Satatam Namami Narayanam Namaskrityam Naramschaiva Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayak Vedi Ramayaneschaiva Purane Bhakte Tata Adavante Cha Madhye Cha Hari Sarvatra Giyate Mukam Karodi Vachalam Bhangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande Shri Gurum Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Paramananda He Madhava Padunga Luchi Makaranda Se Makaranda Panakori Anande Bolo Hari Hari Harinka Name Vandavela Pariko Libe Chakadola Se Chakadolanka Paraye Manamo Rahu Nirantare Manamo Nirantare Rahu Ha Krishna Boli Jiva Jao Ha Krishna Boli Jao Jiva Moteu Dada Radha Dava Moteu Dada Radha Dava Moteu Dada Radha Dava Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
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 Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Good morning, dear devotees. So this is our 34th session that we're calling Meeting in Kurukshetra, and today we're going to speak something about the amazing meeting between Uddhava and Nanda and Yashoda, and we'll probably have at least 2, maybe 3 sessions about this meeting. For Gopati Krishna Prabhu and Madhupati and others who are mentioning that the volume is low, we have this really expensive fancy mic here which someone kindly gave, and there's really nothing else I can do. I'm sorry. We're trying our best. So in our last session, we spoke something about the process and the pathway to Vrindavan, and how Krishna sent Uddhava to Vrindavan. And Krishna sent him with orders. Krishna sent him with some meditation. Krishna told him exactly how to go. Krishna gave him a message to give. Krishna even gave him his own prasad cloth and ornaments for Uddhava. Because to enter into Vrindavan, as we mentioned in our last session, you have to be a marked person. Just like there's a story that on one occasion Lord Shiva was in Mount Kailash and he was watching Krishna and the gopis. He was watching Krishna and the gopis. I'll try to do it like this. He was watching Krishna and the gopis perform the Ras Leela. That's the very best I can do with this mic, and it may fall over. And Lord Shiva had the desire then to enter into the Ras Leela with Krishna. And so there's different stories how this took place. Some say that it was Brinda Devi, some say it was Lalita, some say it was some other gopi. In any case, Lord Shiva came. Many say it was in Mansarovar that he took baths. Some say it was in the Jamuna. They had him take a bath. Generally it said Mansarovar. And when he came out of the water, he became a she. It was the first sex change operation. One of the first. And he became a gopi. And so then he went to the Ras Leela, the Rasastali, and Krishna was there dancing with Srimati Radharani and the different gopis. And when Krishna saw his dear devotee, who's Vaishnavanam Yata Shambhu, Lord Shiva is the greatest of the Vaishnavas, and he saw that now that personality who's like the greatest Purush, now he's dressed up like a woman, and he's become a gopi. And Krishna was very charmed, and he stopped and was looking over there. And Srimati Radharani became a little, who are you looking at, this other gopi? And then Krishna said, oh, this is my devotee, Lord Shiva. At that time, the gopis, they went there, and not understanding who that personality was, they asked him, hey, who are you? What's your name? He can't say I'm Lord Shiva, right? He's dressed, he's in the form of a girl. They said, what's your name? What's the name of your parents? What's the name of your husband? And the gopis, and they said, it must be a demon. There's so many demons. This calf demon came, Vatsasura came dressed as, Pralambasura came dressed as a cowherd boy. This is another demon, come dressed as a gopi. And they all started beating him. And then Krishna came and said, no, it's okay. He's my dear devotee, Lord Shiva. And he can stay here at the entranceway, and he'll become Gopishwar. And he'll become the guardian of the Ras Leela. So, in this way, it's important. You have to be a marked person. If you want to enter into Vrindavan, even if you have the form of a gopi, even if you're Lord Shiva, it's not good enough. The gopis might just beat you up. And they'll ask you, well, what is your name? What is the name of your parents? What's the name of your husband? And you don't have an answer, you can't enter. So Krishna gave all those things to Uddhava, and he even gave his own cloth to Uddhava. And so we described how that journey to Vrindavan is a journey. It's a journey of the consciousness. And Jiva Goswami and Gopal Champu says that he didn't travel on that chariot. Rather, it was a manorata. It was a chariot of the mind, a chariot of the heart that Uddhava went on. And Jiva Goswami and Gopal Champu also mentions that along the way, Krishna, when all the trees saw Uddhava, then the trees, they saw him like Krishna, because Uddhava looks like Krishna, and he has Krishna's cloth on. And so then all the trees started giving so much fruit. And we were commenting how, in a similar way, when we follow the instruction of Guru and Krishna, and Krishna Guru may tell us, now you go, I'm going to stay here. Krishna's staying in Mathura, Uddhava must feel separation. Krishna sends him. But on the way of our journey, if we're following the order of Guru, we'll have the blessings of all the demigods. And there'll never be any lacking. We won't be missing anything. There were plenty of fruits and things on the trees as is coming. And so we spoke about how Uddhava arrived there. Some acharyas say he arrived in the evening. Atta Ratam Rajapata. He went on that Rajapat, or that King's Road, the road of Nanda Maharaj. And he arrived there, Nidhara Bajeshwara Dwara, and the doorway of Nanda Maharaj's house. And then he got off the chariot and he sat down in front of Nanda Maharaj's house. And we mentioned how Krishna told Uddhava that he didn't say go to the gopis first, Why didn't he say to go to the gopis first? The gopis have the most intense feelings of separation. He told him go to Nanda Maharaj first, because Nanda Maharaj is the boss. And we should respect that organized religion that Nanda Maharaj somewhat represents. So to continue with that discussion, from the Gopal Champu, Jiva Goswami says that Gati Prati Gati Kurvanaha. There were so many people coming and going, and then some of them, they noticed him. And they were wondering to themselves, how is this? We're looking at this fellow and we're getting some feelings in our hearts. Just in a similar way, the Yagnapatnis, the wives of the Brahmins who were doing this yagya, although their wives, their husbands were badmash, both badmash, big rascals, those ladies were more qualified than their husbands. And when the cowherd boys came to the men, to the Brahmins, who were worshipping Yagyabuk, God, in the form of a fire, and they're thinking themselves very important because we're the ones who are close to worship God. They didn't recognize those boys, and when the boys begged from them, they said, hey, we know proper Shastra, and you guys are just, and you're Krishna, he's just a little boy who wanders around in the forest, and he's a Vaishya. We're not going to feed him. We're not going to feed you guys. And so they came back disappointed. So Krishna then told them, now you go to their wives, but don't tell them I'm hungry. And that's another topic. And so they went there, and when those wives saw the boys, they became completely ecstatic. Why? Because those boys are Guru. And when we cry in the heart to meet Krishna, to meet Krishna's representative, and then when Krishna sends that representative in the form of Sri Guru, then Krishna whispers in our heart, this is him. This is my representative. Oh, and it's such a wonderful, wonderful feeling. So in the same way, Jiva Goswami now in Gopal Champu is describing Uddhava's arrival in Vrindavan. And he's sitting there in front of the house of Nanda Maharaj, and so many people coming and going. And some of them are kind of looking at him. Who is this guy here? And they were thinking to themselves, Krishna yam yadina spuradiha katam ta drishti yogyam sukham. Why is it that when we're looking at this fellow here, we don't even know him, he's some stranger. Yadi means if. Why is it that when we look at him, we get the same kind of sukh, the same kind of happiness that we get from looking at Krishna? Kim vasovalate tatashta padavim rupam tatadrishyate. Rupam kevalam atanam sukha lasadveshascha sabrajate tasmachchi brajaraja dampati padambo jesu vigyapatam. They were thinking to themselves, if this is Krishna, we're not getting the same happiness that we get when we look at Krishna. Not exactly the same. It looks like Krishna, but we don't feel the same way. And moreover, Kim Vaso Valati Tatashta Padavim. His condition is Padavim. Padavim means a condition or state. It's Tatashta. It's a little mixed. We're not really sure about him. Rupa tuta drishyate, we're seeing this form. Rupam kevalam atanam shukala sadveshas chasabrajate. He has Krishna's clothing on. But we're not feeling the same way. Therefore, tasmat shri brajaraja dampati padamboje vigyapatam. Let's go and tell Nanda Maharaj and Brajarani Yashoda about this fellow. So they went, they knocked on the door. Oh, Nanda Baba, there's some strange fellow out here sitting on your doorstep. He looks just like Krishna, but we don't get the same happiness looking at him that we get seeing Krishna directly. This is another indication too. We want to see Gurudev so much, and those Yagnapatnis feel so much happiness when they see Gurudev. But what do we want to do? Do we want to just see that form of an old man or old woman, depending, I don't know, maybe that's not politically correct. What do we want to see? Just that external form? We want to see something more internal. And ultimately, we want to see Krishna. Krishna Deva Bhavantam Vande. Rupa Goswami sings very nicely in one song. That the gopis, they're praying to Krishna, that please let my mind be just like a bumblebee, always attracted to your lotus feet. And please show me your form. They want to see that. They want to see Krishna's representative. But the purpose of seeing the representative is to see Krishna. And we should bear that in mind also. We want to see Gurudev, and as we spoke in our last session, if Krishna personally comes to the door right now and sends a message, someone comes running and says, hey Nari, Krishna wants to talk to you outside. What are you going to do? And we spoke, I won't go, but I'll put my Gurudev in front of me and go behind my Gurudev. That doesn't mean, though, that we don't want to see Krishna. And this is a topic we want to speak something about more today, about the different moods in Braj. So when Nanda Maharaj heard the words from those Brijbasis that Uddhava had arrived, Nanda Maharaj went outside, and as soon as Uddhava saw Nanda Maharaj, he bowed down and touched Nanda Maharaj's feet. This is Krishna's father. Oh, this is so special. And when Nanda Maharaj saw Uddhava, he understood, because Nanda Maharaj had been to Mathura, and as Jiva Goswami described, we spoke in many sessions ago, when Krishna first met Uddhava in Mathura. Nanda Maharaj was also there. He saw that meeting, so he knows who Uddhava is. So he picked Uddhava up and he embraced him, and Nanda Maharaj began to cry. And he was getting Uddhava wet with his tears. And then he took Uddhava by folded hands, and he brought him to Yashoda, and he sat him down and he introduced him to her, because Yashoda doesn't know him. And he said, this is Uddhava. The Bhagavatam, 46th chapter, speaks about Uddhava's journey and arrival to Vrindavan. And the 14th verse describes, Tam agatam samagamya Krishna Syanu Charam Priyam Nanda Prita Parisvajya Vasudeva Diyarchayat. That as soon as Uddhava arrived there at Nanda Maharaj's house, Nanda Maharaj came out to greet him. Nanda Maharaj embraced him and worshipped him. Why was he worshipping him? Why? It said Parisvajya. He embraced him because Vasudeva Diya. He saw that he's like Krishna. He's like Vasudeva. Uddhava looked just like Krishna. And he gave some pleasure to anyone who saw him. Not the same amount of pleasure as seeing Krishna. But he gave so much pleasure. And although Nanda Maharaj was in samadhi of lamentation, crying in separation from Krishna, when he saw Uddhava come to his house, and suddenly he became aware of some external events, and he eagerly went out to embrace this exalted visitor. Now again, this indicates something. We're still fairly much in the beginning of our presentation. I think we may have 50 or more, maybe 100 sessions of this discussion about the meeting in Kurukshetra. But this indicates something also at the end. It indicates Gauranga Mahaprabhu. And how Gauranga Mahaprabhu is Krishna, who's come to repay his debt to especially the gopis, but to all the Brijbasis. And as we'll discuss today, there's a difference in the love of the Brijbasis, and especially the love of Nanda and Yashoda and the love of the gopis, as compared to the love of the cowherd boys and the cows of Braj. And we'll come to that a little bit later. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami describes that he had 3 states of consciousness. He had one Antaranga Chaitanya, the internal consciousness, when he was in the samadhi, like Nanda Maharaj, we're hearing about, and how he's in Jagannath Puri, Mahaprabhu is seeing Krishna sometimes. He's seeing the Ras Leela in his samadhi. That's his Antaranga Chaitanya. And then there's this Tatastha Chaitana, or Madhyam Chaitana. That Madhyam or Tatastha Chaitana is the middle consciousness. When he's a little confused and someone comes and brings him out of that samadhi, and he looks around and he says, where am I? What's happening? Why are you here? I was in Vrindavan, and now I see Swarup Damodar Goswami. What are you doing here? That's this Tatastha Chaitana. And then there's the Bahiranga Chaitana, the Bahir Chaitana, or the so-called external consciousness, where Mahaprabhu in ecstasy is greeting all the devotees coming from Navadvip, and he's seeing things in an external way. So these three levels of consciousness are there because he has to repay his debt to the gopis and to the residents of Vrindavan. And we see these different levels of consciousness also given in this discussion in the Bhagavatam. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his Sarita Darshan, he says that the words Vasudeva Diya means that Nanda Maharaj was thinking to himself that this is Atiti Bhagavan, that my worshipful deity, Lord Narayan, he worships a deity, he has a deity in his house, he has a pujari also. And Nanda Maharaj, every day he's worshipping the deity of Lord Narayan. His pujari's name is Madhu Mangal. And that's their deity that they worship. They don't worship Krishna. They chastise Krishna with sticks, and they tie him up with ropes, and sometimes they tell Krishna, bring me my shoes, and he puts them on his head. They don't worship Krishna, but they give instructions to Krishna. So Nanda Maharaj was thinking to himself that now my worshipful deity Narayan has come here in the form of this guest. So then Uddhava, he offered respects at the feet of Yashoda Rani, and he stood there with his folded hands. And what is the meaning of this mudra? This is a particular mudra. It's a mudra that we find within Christianity, but it's also a mudra that we find within Vedic culture. This mudra means that I'm here to serve you. It means that I'm being submissive. It's not like Mushtika. There's a Mushtika mudra also. You know Mushtika mudra? Mushtika, this is a Mushtika mudra. Or a Gyan mudra. I know. That's when you're telling me, I know. You can't tell me, I know this. Or, what are you trying to tell me? That's the Mushtika. But when there's this mudra, or this mudra, stop, or this mudra, Abhaya mudra, I'm giving you some benediction, don't worry, I'm greater than you. But this mudra, what is this mudra called? I forget. Anjali, thank you. Anjali mudra, this Anjali mudra indicates that I'm here to serve. I'm here to offer prayers. In the Christian tradition, that's there. And so Uddhava, he offered respects at the feet of Yashoda Rani, and then he stood there with folded hands. Such a beautiful description. Now let's think about this for a moment, shall we? Uddhava has been sent by God, personally, by Krishna, with this message. And Uddhava, he's Brihaspati Sishya. He's a disciple of Brihaspati, the guru of the demigods. And now he's going to this little village where the people don't know very much Shastra or Sanskrit, or they're not very sophisticated people. And he's such a qualified person. He's guru. But he's coming and he's offering obeisances to this little lady, to this babushka. And with folded hands, standing before her, what should I do? This is real guru. This is Sadguru. Not just someone who has an instruction. And my Guru Maharaj, he once said, someone asked him, what is a minimum qualification to be guru? And he spoke that two things are required. You have to have the instruction, the order, but the order is also not enough. Uddhava has the order from Krishna. You go. But another thing is also required. You have to have the qualification. And my Guru Maharaj spoke, this is a little controversial. I like controversial things sometimes. It's fun. He said those original persons had, original gurus in our society, they had an order from Srila Prabhupada. But not all of them had the qualification. So he said it's not enough just to have the instruction, the order. Even if you have the order, you should fold your hands and say, Guru Maharaj, I also have to have the qualification. So Uddhava has that qualification. He's not proud. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, in one conversation, someone asked him, can we become guru? And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, we should not become guru, we should become disciples. And he said there's a problem because we need to have more gurus. Our Gaudiya line, we need to have gurus, but there's a problem. He said because, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, because as soon as you become a guru, you're no longer a Vaishnava. As soon as you have this attitude, yes, I'm guru, then you're no longer guru. And he said, rather, instead of guru, you're goru. You become a cow. So Uddhava, he has every reason to be proud. He's coming from the big city. When you come from the big city and you go to the small village, people don't know anything. Now we have internet, but it used to be completely, those people in the village, they were very, very simple people. Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda is so simple. But Uddhava is offering obeisances at their feet and folding his hands as Anjali Mudra. And then Jiva Goswami says, Atta to swayam cha parijana dvara. The word parijana in Sanskrit means a servant. At that time, atto to swayam cha parijana dvara. Through that servant, dvara means a gate or through, cha yata yatam tam aradayam tu. At that time, arada means to give some homage or some worship to. Arada amasa to. But because Uddhava is amasa, what does mas mean? You know Mataji, right? Mas means month. So someone who's amas means they're very, very young. Amas means a young person. So because Uddhava was younger than Nanda Maharaj, then Nanda Maharaj employed this parijana, this servant, to go and wash the feet of Uddhava. Very beautiful. Very, very nice thing. This is proper etiquette. But don't think that Nanda Maharaj sat down and thought, oh my gosh, I have this guest coming here. Let me listen. Where's Manasanghita? Hey, give me my book, sweetheart. He didn't call his wife to bring the Manasanghita and look it up. And how should you treat the guest if he's younger, if he's this much younger? There's no requirement like that. As Srila Prabhupada spoke in that talk we like so much in Mauritius, that civilization must be based on love, not law. And for someone who has that love, they're not maybe even aware of the law. And this is a topic, very important topic we'll be hearing about in this conversation between Uddhava and Nanda and Yashoda. It's not that Nanda Maharaj is conscious of the rules and regulations and how I should behave in this regard because he's younger than me and what should I do. But he has a spontaneous love. He wants to worship Uddhava because Uddhava is Krishna's representative. But he also knows intuitively, without even any thinking about it, he knows intuitively if I go and start doing it, it won't be good. Because Uddhava is much younger than me. And if I do that, it's going to create some pain in Uddhava's heart. Maybe I can force myself off on him, but Uddhava is not going to be happy. So Nanda Maharaj, in his ecstatic love, understood the perfect solution. Swayam cha parijana dvara. That he, through his representative, to his servant, that servant received Uddhava. And they gave respect for him because they knew Narayanayasyanam iti. They knew that he's the abode of Narayan. And moreover, Labdha Krishna Sneha Bhiktir, Jiva Goswami says, that they understood that he's the object of Krishna's affection. And Tadiya Deha Pratinita, he's like another form of Krishna's body. He's like another body of Krishna. So beautiful. So many things are seen here by Nanda Maharaj, but it's not calculated. It's not on the intellectual platform. And sometimes when we worship Guru or we respect a senior Vaishnava, we may be on the intellectual platform, thinking, oh, should I do this, should I do that? That's okay. Don't criticize that. It's mechanical, but don't criticize it, because at least if it's mechanical, hopefully the machine is working in the right way, because you read the manual and you understand what I'm supposed to do. But that's not so pleasing to the heart. Pleasing to the heart is when we greet that person with love and affection. But if we greet that person, just like I see sometimes younger devotees, they see an older devotee and they say, "Oh, Prabhu, please, let me give you a hug." And they go to give that senior devotee a hug. Because that's what we should be, right? We want to be loving. I feel a little funny sometimes with that. Because they want to be affectionate, that's nice. Radhanath Maharaj has given me so many hugs. If I had a rupee for every hug, I'd probably be a rich man by now. I'm a very fortunate person. Huh? He gives hugs to so many people. But I would never, ever, ever go, "Maharaj, let me give you a hug," and greet him like that. That's something for the superior person to do for the junior. Now, we can calculate that in our mind, but the real best thing is it becomes natural for us. And when it's natural like that, then it's so very, very pleasing. It's not just that the rules and regulations are pleasing, that's okay. But when we do those rules and regulations in a natural, heartfelt way, then it becomes so very, very sweet. So Nanda Maharaj, they didn't see any difference between Uddhava and Krishna. Jiva Goswami says like this. For two reasons. One, because he's a titi. He's a guest who's coming. And we should see, according to Vedic culture, a titi Bhagavan, a titi Narayan, that guest, he's like God. Maybe God has come in the form of a guest. And there's many stories when actually God does come in the form of a devotee or some beggar or something at someone's door. So we always treat that guest, that uninvited guest, as Bhagavan. But moreover, because they saw him, Tadiya Deha Pratiniti, they saw that his form was non-different from Krishna's. And they understood that Labdha Krishna Sneha Bitya, that Labdha, he attained Krishna Sneha, the affection of Krishna. And they gave him so much respect. So also within this is another important lesson for us. That what is it that we love about that senior person? Why do we love a Prabhupada disciple? Well, for several reasons. Because they got to see Srila Prabhupada. Because they got Srila Prabhupada's mercy. Okay, but let's be a little blunt. I come from America. Americans are almost as blunt as people from Australia. Not quite. Australians have the prize, I think. But they're also very blunt in America. They're very straightforward. I've met some Prabhupada disciples who, I'll just tell you one story. Once I went to one temple for Prabhupada's Vyas Puja, and the MC invited one Prabhupada disciple to come and speak. I was a little taken aback to see that he was wearing jeans and Western clothes. Anyway, I don't care about that. And he sat down on the Vyasasana, okay, and he started crying. Well, that's sweet. He has some nice feeling for Prabhupada. And what did he say? He said, "Prabhupada's so kind, even though I'm drinking alcohol and I smoke and I have all these bad habits, but still Prabhupada loves me." And pretty much that was his message. And okay, I can, with all my heart, I can give respect. Because when I see him, I see Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada said, "If you love me, you love my dog." And these are the persons who Prabhupada gave his mercy to, the persons who came to him and established his mission. But at the same time, I didn't have the same feeling toward him that I did toward my Guru Maharaj or toward other devotees who were behaving in a proper way. So when we see Labdha Krishna Sneha Bitya, or Labdha Guru Sneha, when we see that someone is not just having initiation, just sent by Guru, but they have the affection of Gurudev, then we feel very, very happy with that person. And all of these things, we in the beginning, we have to calculate these things. These are, we're reading about this, and it's important that we understand it. That's why we have these kathas. But ultimately, these things should become natural, just as natural as when you get up in the morning and you start getting dressed. You're not thinking, oh, when I tie my sari, I should make this kind of knot, and you're not calculating about how you tie the sari. When you very first learned to put a sari on or put on a dhoti, then you were calculating. They told me to do like this, and I got to do this thing. But after some years, you just do it in the dark room. You're not even thinking about it whatsoever. So Shukadeva Goswami goes on to describe the Maharaj Parikshit in text 15. Bojitam paramanena samvishtam kasipo sukham gata shramam prayat prichat pada samva hanadibi. At that time, Bojitam paramanena. What is paramanana? Paramananda? Paramana?
Sweet rice.
Yeah, very nice sweet rice. Bojitam paramana. They gave him some very special sweet rice. And samvishtam, they gave him a nice seat. They gave him a seat, kasipo, on a nice bed. And sukhagata, they made him happy, they made him comfortable and relieved. Gata shamam, all his fatigue went away. And then at that time, Nanda Maharaj began to inquire from him. There's so many purports to all these verses. I want to go quickly, but there's so many lessons that are very important for us also. This is an important lesson. I wasn't even thinking to speak today about how Nanda and Yashoda greeted Uddhava, but it's just packed in with it. You can't separate it. And it's so important for us to learn this. So now Uddhava has come, and Nanda Maharaj is the personification of greed to hear about Krishna. He wants to hear about Krishna. But what is he doing? Right? He's not just, so Uddhava, tell me, what's going on with Krishna? Does he remember? He'll get to that. But first of all, Bojitam Paramana. He's giving him some nice sweet rice to eat. First of all, he's giving him a nice seat to sit down. Gata Shramam, to relieve his fatigue, because Uddhava has come from a long distance. This is the nature of the Brijbasis, because they're following love, not law. Someone who's following law, they're just doing it in a mechanical way. But Nanda Maharaj, he feels what Uddhava is feeling. He has that empathy. It's not just, oh, you must be tired. Yeah, I know, I went through all that. But no, I feel it also. And to show that, Bojitam Paramana, let me feed you some nice sweet rice. Let me give you. And after all of that, then I'm going to inquire from you. Not first. Now, Vishwanath Chakravarti's Thakur, in his Artha Darshani, he says if you can't do Govinda Vallabh, you can't please Krishna, you won't get a connection.
Oh, okay. So, in this case, we go.
Krishna Madhupati Prabhu, yeah, we just pretend that you're listening to a class from somebody speaking in India. This is the way it goes. This is reality in India. So we were speaking about how Nanda and Yashoda greeted, how Uddhava greeted Yashoda with folded hands, with no pride, and how Nanda and Yashoda, such sweet dealings in Vrindavan. And how Bojitam Paramanam, they're giving this Paramanam to Uddhava, the sweet rice. Now, a question comes. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur raises a very beautiful question. How did they cook it? Because you should know that they were all extremely disturbed. And everybody had stopped cooking. It wasn't like that it is, okay, I'm going to go down to Govinda's restaurant, send somebody over to Govinda's, Uddhava's here, get some sweet rice for him or something. It doesn't work like that. Who's going to cook for him? So Vishwanath says that Nanda Maharaj, this phrase, Bojitam Paramanam, has this big significance. Because from the day that Krishna left Vrindavan and went to Mathura, all the homes of the Brijbasis were unswept, like some people's places we know, very dirty. They were full of leaves and grass and dirt. There were so many spider webs and different things. And the Brijbasis, Vishwanath says, they were kept alive only by the milk and yogurt and things that some people bring to their flat. The people would come from neighboring villages because they were so concerned about the Brijbasis. They would bring, the Mother Yashoda is going to die if we don't bring him. Anapayani is going to die. I mean, she's just right in front of the computer 24/7. If we don't take her some kind of prasadam, it's going to be terrible. Maybe we'll have to sweep her floor also too. So they're simply lamenting all the Brijbasis. Krishna's not here, we're going to die. I hope Krishna Kun's watching this. She'll appreciate these comments also. But on that particular day, there was one Brahmin who Krishna inspired in his heart. And that Brahmin understood that Uddhava's coming to Vrindavan. And so Nanda Maharaj is going to want to feed Uddhava. He's going to want to give him some parama anna. Anna means food in Sanskrit. Anna also means rice in Bengali and in Sanskrit as well. And paramana means very special. Paramana means very special rice, sweet rice. So that Brahman, being inspired by Krishna, took some chipped rice and he cooked enough sweet rice to feed at least one person. And he brought it there. So this Bojitam Paramana has this meaning, Vishwanath says. And that servant was massaging Uddhava's feet. Because again, Uddhava was Nanda Maharaj's nephew and he's younger than him. It's not appropriate. So Nanda Kishore Goswami, in his Vrindavan Lilamrita, speaks about what happened at that time with Nanda Maharaj. Netri ashu gada gada aisa aisa bole pula ke panita uda vera kori pole bolo Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. How did Nanda Maharaj greet Uddhava? Again, he didn't pull down the copy of Manasamhita and flip through, let's see, which chapter is it, how to greet a guest. It was nothing like that. He greeted him with tears. Netri ashu, gada gada asa asa bole. And he welcomed Uddhava to come in. And with great emotion, he took Uddhava and he put Uddhava on his lap. Why did he put Uddhava on his lap? Uddhava's not so close with Nanda Maharaj. Why? Again, Nanda Maharaj is not calculated. He didn't even think about it. It just automatically happens. Because he sees Krishna and Uddhava. And this is what I do when I see Krishna. Jiva Goswami and Gopal Champu says, Labda Vishramam Tutam Kramasa. That at that time when Uddhava had relaxed, and his feelings, Nanda Maharaj's feelings at that time, Samuchalat Utkalika Jata, his feelings started rising up and becoming more and more intense. Okay, I love Uddhava, I put him on my lap and everything, and I'm crying and ecstasy, but he really wants to know about Krishna. And he begins to ask him. But how does he ask him? That's also very, very beautiful. We want to learn from the Brijbasis how to deal with other people, because Prabhupada said, right, the basis of civilization is love and not law. And so we want to learn that basis from the dealings of Vrindavan. So in the 46th chapter, when Sukadeva Goswami is speaking to Kurukshetra Maharaj about Uddhava's arrival in Vrindavan, the 16th verse, he says, Kachid Anga Mahabhaga Sakana Sudanandana Aste Kusya Pachadyadya Yukto Mukta Surit Brita. He said, he addressed Uddhava as Anga Mahabhaga. And they translate Anga as someone very dear to me. But Anga literally means, you're part of me. Uddhava, you're like part of me. I have so much love for you. Because you're coming with Krishna's message. And this is how we greet the Vaishnavas. Because the Vaishnavas, just as Uddhava is carrying Krishna, why do we love the Vaishnavas? Not just because Konafanka because someone spit in their ear in the form of initiation. Is that saying in Oriya, Kona Funka Guru? The Guru is not just someone who spits in your ear, not just because they have initiation. Guru is not just mantra datta, but he's ashraya datta. He's giving shelter. And because we see that, and then that person is so very, very dear to us. So he addresses Uddhava as Anga Mahabhaga. That my dear Uddhava, you're just like part of me. You're so Mahabhaga. You're so very, very fortunate. And he asks him, how is my friend? Suranandana, that son of Marasura, Vasudev, how is he doing? Is everything okay with him? And he says, he addresses him as Surat. Your Guru Maharaj last night was speaking about these two different words, Surat and Bandhu. Yeah. And of the two, Surat means, Bandhu means someone you may want something from. But Surat in Sanskrit means someone that you just love them, you're just giving. And so here, Nanda Maharaj is addressing, he's speaking about Vasudeva in that way. That Vasudeva is Surat. He's not just Bandhu, but he's Surat. He's so very, very dear. And now that he's Mukta Surat Brita, he's become free. He's Mukta Jana. He's become free now that Kamsa is dead. In his Laghu Vaishnava Toshani, Jiva Goswami says that, he raises this question, why is Nanda Maharaj asking about Vasudeva? I mean, really, do you really think that he cares so much about Vasudeva? Okay, he loves Vasudeva, there's no doubt about that. But he wants to know about Krishna. Why is he asking about Vasudeva? Jiva Goswami gives one reason for that. He says because Nanda Maharaj wasn't able to ask about Krishna. Because as soon as he would start to ask about Krishna, then his voice would choke up. And he would start crying. And he wouldn't be able to speak. So to calm himself down, Nanda Maharaj asks about Vasudeva first. Again, this is Parokshavad. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he says that in some other of his writings that this Parokshavad is the way the Brijbasis speak. It's such a sweet way. They say one thing, but they mean another thing. And I've spoke about that many, many times. I won't go there again today. But this is what Nanda Maharaj is doing. Really, he wants to know about Krishna. And by asking about Vasudeva, indirectly, he's asking about Krishna. And so he's giving some introduction in another way. He's asking, first of all, about Vasudeva. And he's addressing Uddhava as Anga Mahabhaga, that you're very, very fortunate because you're so close to Krishna, you're Anga. And because you're Anga to Krishna, you're also Anga to us. And by speaking this, Jiva Goswami says that Nanda Maharaj was crying. By addressing Uddhava as Anga Mahabhaga, that you're just like part of Krishna. You're so close to Krishna. You're an Anga. You're like a limb of Krishna. You're so fortunate. Indirectly, Parokshavad. Nanda Maharaj is crying. You're very fortunate, Uddhava. We're not so fortunate. You're Anga. You're directly seeing Krishna. But we don't see Krishna anymore. We don't have such good fortune. And therefore, Krishna has rejected us. And Laghu Vaishnava Toshani, Jiva Goswami says this is what Nanda Maharaj indirectly is telling to Uddhava. And he says, as the son of Sura, Vasudeva, has manifested his father's good fortune, now that Krishna's acting like his son, now that he's become mukta, free from all his troubles, and now he's united, this word Anga again, he's Mahabhaga also, because he's united with Krishna. He's surrounded by all his friends, Krishna. Is he well? So he's asking, Nanda Maharaj is asking about Vasudeva. But indirectly he's asking about Krishna. And indirectly, even when he's asking about Vasudeva, He's asking about Vasudeva in connection with Krishna. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur also says the same thing, that Nanda Maharaj couldn't ask about Krishna directly. And Jiva Goswami says also that by asking about Vasudeva, Nanda Maharaj is indicating also his love for Vasudeva. And again, as we've spoken in some of our previous sessions, there's no envy. It's not like, who does that guy think he is? He's got my son. He better return him pretty quick. There's no subtle trying to criticize or anything like that, that trying to get Uddhava on his side, get Uddhava on my side. When you go back to Krishna, you can convince Krishna that actually that Vasudeva and Devaki, they just cheated. They're not really your parents. And we can find some subtle faults with them. There's no tinge of that. He's not, by using the word mukti, our acharyas say that he's free of what? He's free of Kamsa. But another indication of that is that by saying the word mukti, he's indicating Kamsa indirectly. But also by indicating Kamsa, you could say maybe it's a kind of put down. Because this Vasudeva and Devaki, they're connected with Kamsa, not us. We're here in Vrindavan, we're better than him. But Nanda Maharaj doesn't have any feeling like that. He's not thinking like that at all. He has so much love. And therefore he's saying Surit. He's addressing Vasudeva as his dear friend. So I'm going to stop here. I'm sorry for the inconvenience today for devotees online. We're going on and off. If anybody has any reflections or comments or questions, just let me see who's here today. Vrinda Sundari from Denver, Colorado. Nice to see you. Christina Krishnatma. Nice to see you. Natalia in Estonia. Sanjay, Sveta Kot. And I think, Meena here. Jai Pataka Majna. And Charu Chandravali. Hare Krishna, my pranams. Aranyas. Radha Priya. Midani. Ujjvala Rasagya Mataji. Hare Krishna. Sanjay. Shyamananda Prabhu. Nice to see you. And Vasudev Sukundadas. Nice to see you, Prabhuji. And Gopati Krishna Prabhu, Madhupati Antaryami, so many devotees. Thank you all very much for taking part, encouraging us, letting us do a little service for Krishna Katha. So if anybody has any reflections, you can tell us what you're walking away with today. Vrinda Sundari, who told me sometimes she watches this with her kids, her small children. That's very, very sweet. That makes me, actually I read somewhere once that if you can make friends with a child, that's like perfection. If you can actually make friends with a child. So Brenda Sundari is there watching with her children. If they're watching this, I'll be very happy. I hope I can make friends with you someday. So she's saying thank you very much. Natalia in Estonia is saying thank you for the sweet katha. Anybody else here in the room have any reflections or anything? Sadhya Prabhu, do you have anything you want to add about this?
Okay, Nanda Maharaj's servant, he cooked the sweet rice?
No, the sweet rice was cooked, Jiva Goswami says, by a Brahmin. It wasn't by his servant. But then he had a servant do that. Because also it wouldn't be appropriate, because Uddhava, by caste as a Kshatriya, it wouldn't be appropriate to have a Brahmin come and start massaging his feet. Again, all these things are so sweet and they're just natural. And this is a part of a problem. Sometimes devotees, they complain, oh, the leaders are like this, the problem like that. Prabhupada didn't like that. He would just say, so what are you going to do about it? And as we spoke in our last session, Prabhupada told one devotee was complaining to Prabhupada about those guys, and Prabhupada said, it's not them, it's we, it's us. This is not some bureaucracy. Now what are you going to do? Bhakti is all about a positive solution. And yes, there are obnoxious people, and sometimes there are also managers. That's life. Sometimes Indra has problems even. But we respect them, and we work around them. Sometimes we have to keep a distance and whatever. Vrinda Sundari makes a comment, it's such a refreshing reality to tune into the reality and culture of Krishna and his devotees. It's such a wonderful reality. Okay, anybody else have something? Let me just flip the camera here and do something with the microphone. Turn this to speak really loudly for Bridget.
What is actually the empathy? Like, I mean, like born and brought up, I mean, in the cities and with all these impersonal relationships around us in the fast moving world. So Nand Maharaj's empathy, you were saying that he actually felt that Uddhava is tired. I mean, he just didn't say it, but felt Uddhava is tired. Many times in these interpersonal skills, like this empathy is, I mean, I want to understand what is empathy and how to cultivate this is in my interpersonal skills, like.
Back around, everybody. It's nice to see everybody. Hare Krishna. So that is such a wonderful and important question. He's asking how we can cultivate this empathy. But don't think that empathy is just a social skill. Cultivating that empathy is the essence of bhakti. Cultivating that empathy is the essence of sadhu sangha. Cultivating that empathy is the essence of the guru-disciple relationship. And we're always trying to understand what the Vaishnavas feel, how do they feel. And when we speak to them, we want to be very careful. And you may be right, but as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta wrote in one article, you're always unnecessarily wrong if you're just wanting to correct a Vaishnav according to the law. You may say, no, Maharaj, what do you said Sarva Dharma Prityaga is a verse in the Bhagavatam. That's not true. It's a verse in the Bhagavad Gita. And you may quote it correctly. But Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, you're always unnecessarily wrong. Why? No, I'm right. Sarva Dharma Prityaga is not a verse in the Bhagavatam. It's a verse in the Gita. Hello? You're right according to the law. But empathy means we understand the mood of the person, and we're not just listening and trying to find the itty-bitty faults. That's for the Smarta Brahmins. What is the difference between the Smarta Brahmins and the Vaishnavas? A big part of it is their attachment to Sanskrit grammar. Because if you study Sanskrit, oh my God, it's just so pakka, so first class, how you have to pronounce everything. And if you don't pronounce something properly, you're considered to be so low class. Huh? That's from a very external point of law. But we want to become empathetic, which means we want to understand what is their mood. Why did they say that? Why did he say Sarva Dharma Prityaga? And maybe he ascribed it to the Bhagavatam, because he's thinking that Sarva Dharma Prityaga is exemplified by the Bhagavatam. And if I think like that with an empathetic kind of mood, then I may gain something valuable. But if I look at it with a smarta perspective, then no, Maharaj, let me correct you, you're wrong. That's not a verse there. And this was Srila Prabhupada's mood. This is why he didn't correct the devotees so much when they mispronounced. Prabhupada also wanted the devotees to learn to pronounce Sanskrit properly, to learn to pronounce Bengali properly. But why? Not so that we can become smartas, but so that people will love you. Isn't it? Isn't it? People love you. When you can say a few words in Espanol, muy bonito. Someone, they become, oh, it's so very nice. It melts their heart, isn't it? You say a few words in Hungarian. Somebody's saying, should we call ladies Prabhu or not Prabhu? I don't want to argue about that. Give me a break. Prabhupada called them Prabhu. I have a hard time because I understand some Bengali, a little Oriya, very little Hindi. And it's just weird. You just don't address ladies as Prabhu in this culture. But Prabhupada did sometimes. So if someone else wants to do that, I have no problem with it. In the same way that I find myself throughout the day sometimes saying, in this lecture today, we said a few words in Russian here and there. We said a few words in Bengali here and there. We said a few words in Espanol, in Spanish here and there. And devotees feel some happiness from that. And what is my purpose? It's not law, but it's love. Because I know that it's so sweet when they hear a few words in their personal language. They feel loved. They feel appreciated. And that's the essence of bhakti. It's not according to the law. We strictly try to do all these things right, and I can't call a lady Prabhu because it's just not grammatically correct. And it's not grammatically correct by the law. But Srila Prabhupada did it a number of times, and I'm not advocating that. Don't freak out and start writing me nasty messages or something on Facebook saying, you know, I also have a hard time. I'm on your side. I have a hard time calling ladies Prabhu. But I have no problem with devotees doing it because Srila Prabhupada did, because I see the essence of it, which is love and not law. So that's my humble answer to your question. Brajabani, nice to see you here. She says Hari. I think she likes that point. Anybody else has something? Okay, let me just flip the camera around and do something also with the mic. Okay, Braj Kumar Prabhu.
Thank you so much for your class.
Speak really loud.
I was remembering that Karana Swami, las Vyasa Puja, you have many amazing program of Vyasa Puja.
Which Maharaj?
Karana
Kadamba Maharaj. Well, you're in a good house to talk about Kadamba Maharaj.
And he told this exactly point, and I feel like this is so value. Like he say, okay, the demigods, they make everything correct. They have amazing sadhana, they have amazing yagyas, they have sopaka knowledge, everything. But why they are not bhakti? He say, for compassion. For compassion. Why nobody can approach Nishingadev? And only Prahlad Maharaj can approach, because they have so much this kind of situation of perfecting everything, but they don't have this compassion that Prahlad have. That Prahlad is, he say, okay, I can stay in this material world, but bring everything with you, please. This is my desire. And he say, this mood of compassion is completely our mood, no? But in myself, I can see in myself, like in the beginning, was more easy, be compassionate, because in the beginning I was completely only like bigger for the people. Like, okay, I wanna learn this. I don't know how to make this, but with the time, I can feel in my heart like I start becoming so pride. Like, oh yes, I am this guy, and this I am looking in myself like little a way of this compassion, no? Like go to the street and help with really the heart in this way, no? And I wanna ask you about this, no? How I can like work with myself. I know this question is for myself, but how we can make this kind of exercise, no? Like I see yesterday in you approach, you speak in Spanish, and like this kind of things, I feel so appreciated, no?
Muy poquito. Very little.
Yes.
No, I'm speaking very little in Espanol. I'm not trying to cut you off.
No, this is the question. Like, I feel like even this part of devotional service in one point is becoming me like so bright, really. And I don't wanna be so long away of this mood of Vaishnava's mood, no, like.
Brajabani to making a comment. She says, by the word Mataji is a Hindi word. No, it's not. Mataji is a Sanskrit word, and it's found in Hindi, it's found in Bengali, it's found in Oriya, it's found in Gujarati, it's in all the languages in India. So, I'm sorry, I'm distracted again. So how can we develop, and we have this pride. In the beginning, switch the mic and the thing around again. In the beginning, it's difficult. The Bhagavatam says that our consciousness is anamoya. That's the first level of consciousness. I'm hungry. I am. This is who I am. I am hungry. And so this is what we feel as a devotee when we first join. I am hungry. I need, give me attention, pay attention to me, bring some prasadam to my place and feed me, take care of me, do this, do that for me. I need some attention, I need something. But after something happens, the Bhagavatam says in the 5th canto, after we eat, Paresha Bhavo, after we eat, then we become tushta, we become satisfied. That satisfaction is a very important aspect of bhakti. That we have to feel satisfied. When we feel satisfied in our nam bhajan, when we feel satisfied by hearing Krishna Katha and Parasparana Kathanam, having back and forth with that Krishna Katha, and diving into it deeply and examining things from different perspectives, our heart feels very satisfied. Then when we see someone who doesn't have that, we feel compassion. Oh, I had such a nice thing today. That prasadam was so good. Let me share some of that prasadam with them. Let me share some of the experience that I've gotten with them. And that's prachar. Prachar means to share something. But to share that, we have to have it. The word preach is a nasty word actually in English. It has a bad meaning also. It means to speak down to someone and try to push them.
Preach.
To preach, yeah. It has two meanings, several meanings. One of the meanings is to speak down. We say, hey, don't preach to me, Prabhu. But prachar has a similar meaning to Vardhana. Vardhana means to nourish, like Govardhana, Govardhan. He nourishes because he's relishing something. And therefore Srila Prabhupada in one lecture, which we often quote, which I won't go into in so much, in Nectar Devotion in Vrindavan in 1972, he said that this preaching means we have to relish. We have to relish. Because when we relish, then that compassion automatically comes. Man, this is so good. This is really, really good. You want to share it with other people. And you naturally feel sorry for someone. You see a poor pig is eating stool and he has some nice halava. Man, don't do that. Take some of this nice hot halava. And everybody in the material world, they're eating stool. They're just watching the news and fighting about who's the president, who's not the president, and is this thing a conspiracy? Is it not a conspiracy? Stop eating stool. Take this Bhagavatamrit, this nectar of the Bhagavatam. But first we have to drink it. Pibata Bhagavatam Rasamalayam. We have to drink it first, and then we can share with others. Yeah, Mata is Sanskrit, and Ji is also Sanskrit. Mata Ji. Having conversation with Brajabanita. Okay, anybody else with anything? Govinda Vallabha.
Before I mentioned, okay. I just had a small reflection. What you already said, I just want to say it again. I really felt it was so sweet, Nanda Maharaj's selflessness. Even though he was so concerned about Krishna, he made sure that Uddhava had all his needs and he felt completely welcome. So even like I reflecting on us devotees, sometimes devotees, myself, would tend to be like, oh, it's for Krishna, so everybody get out of the way because I'm doing something for Krishna. It's about me and Krishna. But it's not about me and Krishna, it's about me, the devotees, and Krishna. So that's perfect, like balance, It's not just to what I want.
When you're saying that, it reminded me about the essence of marriage also. And sometimes in our marriage, we're really hungry, or we're just really tired, and the other person's coming and they have this problem, this or that, and we're just like, look, I can't listen to you, and we get annoyed with the other person, because we're so selfish. But all of our relationships within bhakti, and a marital relationship is an ashram, where we're practicing bhakti, and the purpose of it is to serve each other. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta says in the Vaishnava marriage, it's not that the wife serves the husband or the husband serves the wife, but they serve each other. Because how can a Vaishnava accept service from another Vaishnava? Rather, they serve each other for the pleasure of Guru and Krishna. And that service, the essence of that service, as you're pointing out, is that empathy, that understanding. And sometimes maybe I am really hungry. And she just wants to say something. But maybe I should put aside my feelings for a moment and try to listen to her. It's so important that she says this thing, and maybe she can try also to understand I'm really hungry. And that's marriage. When there's empathy, we try to understand that other person. We give up our selfishness. Without giving up that selfishness, how are we going to progress in bhakti? It just becomes something mechanical. It's law, but not love. Okay, anything else from anybody here? Anapayani, you have any? Anapayani always has some.
I really
Okay, just wait a
appreciate
second.
Vrindavan's comment. I actually wanted to say the same thing. Important that this Nanda Maharaj, he take care of Uddhava, although he was in complete anxiety and separation with Krishna. He was thinking about Uddhava, how to greet him nicely, how to feed him with sweet rice. And it's so important.
Probably put raisins in it also.
Yeah, that's right. Maybe
She hates
just
raisins.
because Uddhava liked them. But I also like that you said other people, brahmanas, they took care of Vrijavasis because they weren't able to cook, to clean their houses, and they said, oh my God, they're gonna die. And this is like natural feeling, and you said the love, it's love, not the law, that I have to do that, they're gonna die, okay, I'm gonna do that. But it's just natural, although unfortunately sometimes I see in my heart that it's not natural. It's kind of, I have to do that, and it doesn't give any pleasure in the heart. So it's so important that it's from the heart, and the only way to do it from the heart, to see how others doing it from the heart. It's so nice. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This is, by the way, when you were saying all this, it was making me reflect on, I travel all over the world. I'm not just trying to bang my drum, but that's been our curse for a number of years. And we go so many places, and wherever we go, I always get the same thing. Usually it's artists and intellectuals who come to me and they're crying, oh, the managers, and they're being so bad. And sometimes they're being really bad. Some of the managers are being really bad, and we could tell stories. Saudi people could tell, we could write a book, I'm sure, how bad some of the managers are, and they're really bad. And Prabhupada said things also. But we should understand that, why am I feeling that? Because I'm a jiva soul, and as a jiva soul, I'm naturally looking for ahoitiki bhakti, real unmotivated love. And I'm not satisfied when I see this hoitiki priti, this motivated love, because they're giving affection to me because they want me to be their follower, or to give them money, or do this or that. And it hurts in my heart. But we should understand that this is a work in progress. We can't sentimentally, artificially start trying to imitate the Brijbasis and how they dealt with each other. And yeah, Maharaj, let me give you a hug, as we were saying earlier. It's not appropriate. In the beginning, we have to understand something about the rules, but we do the rules out of love. It's not that I'm just going to read a book and learn the rules, and then that's going to give me love. That's a misunderstanding. It begins with love. And the books say we have to associate with a person. We have to associate with an exalted devotee who's acting on the platform of love, not on the platform of law, like Srila Prabhupada. Otherwise, Prabhupada could have just sent his books and he could have stayed in Vrindavan. He could have shipped them over to America and just, let me, a little note in the book too, let me know when you want to ask any questions or something, He could have done that. And it wouldn't have worked. There had to be a living example. And Prabhupada was standing in the line, waiting in 22nd Avenue, all these young boys and girls waiting in front of him to use the bathroom. And Prabhupada's waiting in line. He's showing in his loving dealings, and he melted their hearts. He didn't come and give law, he came and gave love. And then after the love was there, he said, oh, now there's law. We have 4 regulated principles. But why do we do that law? Out of love. And so it's very frustrating sometimes in our society when our society is operating not on the platform of love. We feel frustrated. I want to hear a class which is based on love. I want to have dealings which are based on love. I want to have people who appreciate, who care about the devotees, and not just tell them what the rules and regulations and put a sign up on the bathroom door. I don't mind your sign. But who care about people. But that's something we have to work towards. And how do we work towards it? By hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, by hearing about Uddhava entering into Vrindavan, and hearing about the dealings between Nanda Maharaj and Uddhava and Yashoda. Okay? So, Brajabanita comments, we can relish and share only when you yourself are full of this mood. Yeah, only when we become full. Vaisheshika comments very nicely. What is preaching? He said preaching means that you take a glass and you pour milk in it. And when you pour the milk and all of a sudden it fills up and it starts overflowing. That overflowing, that's our preaching. So we should fill up our cup completely, become completely intoxicated, as Dhruva Maharaj says, with this hearing and chanting. We become completely intoxicated with that. And then we don't even notice if people say bad things to us. We don't even notice that the temple president was being really rude or trying to exploit me. Yeah, anyway, who cares? The kirtan was so good, man. The Krishna Katha was so good. And I'm not living for the law. If you live for the law, you haven't joined this movement. If you're coming and just complaining about all the injustices, then maybe you're going to go to work, you're going to get a job working for Yamaraj. And finding all the faults. But I want to be part of Nityananda Prabhu's movement.
From where does this, what is the basis of all these things, like basically that who did this thing wrong, who did that thing wrong, what is the truth? For example, we see the news channels sometimes say that we will show the truth, who is the person guilty, who did what fault, who did what fault. Sometimes we try to analyze the devotee sangha from this angle, that okay, this issue happened, now who is in the fault? At least we should find it out so that we can correct it. So we just justify it like that. We have very good intentions. I'm a leader, I'm a manager, I should know it so that the concerned devotee should be corrected or concerned devotee should be addressed. So in that way, justifying or basically having very good intentions even. But then, what is all this like if we understand? Like,
okay. Good question. Let me just flip back all these gadgets here. Very good question. Thank you. That's our disease. What is our fundamental disease? I want to be God. That's the fundamental disease. And so when I come and practicing bhakti, just like Keshi, the Keshi demon, he's entering into Braj and he's making a big noise. And although Keshi in his previous life was a devotee, according to Brahma Vivarta Purana and Garga Samhita, he was actually a servant of Indra. He was carrying Indra's parasol, which means a show. He's making this big show. When he entered into Vrindavan, it created a great disturbance. It's not wrong to find fault, and fault finders are our friends. But why is it that none of us accept the corrections that just from anybody and everybody? Because everybody wants to correct us, right? That's life. Everybody's coming always, you shouldn't have done that, you should pronounce it like this, you put your shoes on wrong, you picked your nose, you did this, you did that. We find so many faults in everything that we do. But some people we can accept it, and some people we can't. We can feel their mood. We want to find that person who cares about us. And when we really feel that, we feel that love, then we can accept their law. Otherwise, we can't accept their law. And similarly, we can't impose on other people who are ashradadani vimukhe prashindati, as the Padma Purana says here, ashradadani, who don't have faith in us, who are prashindati, who don't have interest in hearing from us. Ashradadani prashindati, and we're just not interested in doing what we have to say. We're turned away from us. You can't speak to them. So we should control ourselves. A Vaishnava also is someone who's very, very tolerant and doesn't try to run around and explain to everybody else. Some people say, we should be like Arjuna. Yes, you should be like Arjuna. Arjuna's a Shaktivesha avatar. Are you like Arjuna? I'm not like Arjuna. I can try to imitate Arjuna, but then it's going to be a problem. Okay? So I'd like to stop there. So today is Friday. So we'll be back again on Sunday. Madhupati Prabhu has the last word. He says, thank you for filling my cup with milk. So we'll be back again on Sunday with more about Uddhava's discussion with Nanda and Yashoda. I think we're going to have at least probably 3 sessions on this. It's really one of my favorite topics. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol, Vancha Kalpa